Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Meaningful Monday. I'm glad to be here in Orlando, Florida, because today we kick off our first ever Wacky Warrior Golf Tournament. A special thanks goes to the Katzer Management Group. Jim Katzer, his son Josh, they have just worked really hard to sponsor this and to work with us. It's going to be a fun event. I'll give you more about that next week, but it is going to be the wackiest charitable tournament ever. And so we're looking at having many more. If one of you want to be a sponsor of a wacky tournament, let us know. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just to kind of set the tone for this week, as I was getting on the plane a couple of days ago, loaded up with baggies because I've got prizes and all kinds of things that I'm bringing out here, the baggage attendant that met me at the curbside, his name was Howard Meek. We went through the usual things, and when it got ready to go, I had a $10 that I was able to tip him, and actually I had 2 5s. It was the only money in cash I had, but he looked at my shirt. I was wearing this shirt, and on here it says Wacky Warriors. This is the official golf shirt that we're giving to everybody today. But he looked at my shirt and said, "What's that?" And I explained to him. He said, "Oh, how'd that get started?" And I explained it to him. And he said, "I lost a son." And as we were getting ready to leave, he said, "Do you take donations?" And I said, "Well, yes." And he said, "Well, here." And he reached in his pocket where he had been keeping his tips, and he pulled out a 20. And I said, No, you don't have to do that." And he says, "I want to do that." And so I gladly accepted it with much gratitude. And I went into the airport. I was thinking, I wish I had a wacky pin. And then I started looking in my backpack, and sure enough, I had an extra wacky pin. And I ran back out and gave him one of our wacky pins, and he grinned from ear to ear and just lit up. And in that moment, I realized that many times it's not the one that receives that gets the most excited, it's the one that gives that gets the most excited. And I could see it in his countenance. And so I want to say a shout out to Howard. Thank you, Howard, for being the type of person that most of us are, and but sometimes we keep that hidden. There is nothing as unequal as the equal treatment of unequals. I've for many years, my focus has been on what the world calls estate planning. And I'm going to make a statement here that'll say that traditional estate planning is doing more, has done more to actually destroy families than the amount of good that it could ever do in the form of saving taxes. And the estate tax law is kind of a funny thing where they tax you on your size of your estate when you die. Now you've got to have a fairly large estate, but the principles behind it are the same. For some reason, somewhere along the line, we've developed a culture where we actually feel like we're obligated to transfer our financial wealth to future generations. We look at it purely as an obligation. But if you understand the laws that support this and what we're now using in order to transfer our wealth to future generations without paying taxes, you realize that some of the laws go back to prior to Columbus coming to America that we're using. And back at in those days, it was all centered on how do we get what? What were they transferring? Land. How do we get our land to future generations? And it wasn't to transfer land because they wanted to make them rich. It was they wanted to transfer land because they wanted to give them opportunity. They still needed, once they got the land, they needed a lot of luck. They had to put forth a lot of hard effort. And many times they transferred with that the wisdom that they'd learned over the years on how to plant their crops and to do it successfully and how to have the best crops that they could have. And these were family traditions, family intellectual knowledge that was being transferred from one generation to the next. And so as you look at traditional estate planning today, it's all about how do I transfer our financial wealth to future generations. And the traditional estate plan is what I call a plan of 4 Ds. divide the assets up, defer them downstream as far as you can, ultimately dump them out on heirs who are ill-prepared to receive them, and then watch them dissipate. And it doesn't matter how much financial wealth you have, we all still have the same attitude. We have this feeling, or many people have this feeling, that by leaving their children financial wealth, they've created a legacy. Well, legacy isn't something that you leave. Legacy is something that you live. And the greatest things that you can give your children are those things that you value more than money. My opinion is that they should change the name estate planning and replace it with family leadership. Because family leadership is something that prepares our family to be givers, to create more than we consume. That's the really gift that we can give children. The gift of opportunity, not an obligation to give them of our financial wealth. We'll talk more about this in future Meaningful Mondays, but I wanted to leave you that one thought and want you to ponder it. So as you think about this week, what are the gifts of true wealth that you can begin leaving your children now? Remember, legacy is not something you leave. Legacy is something that you live. Enjoy this week. I look forward to reporting back to you next week on how meaningful the Wacky Warrior Tournament has been here in Orlando. With much gratitude, enjoy the week. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.